The medical scanner didn't chime its usual soft greeting. Instead, the massive diagnostic archway emitted a sharp, rhythmic C-harp note that vibrated through the floorboards of the testing bay. Across my primary console, the diagnostic line flickered into a shade of blood red so deep it looked like an open wound. Would you have stepped through that archway knowing what she carried? Or are you, like Thrax, still trying to make sense of the red lights? Only seconds ago, I had been adjusting the focal lenses with the pride of the Xyran master technician. This scanner was the crowning achievement of my lineage, an infallible eye designed to categorize every carbon-based soul in the sector. But as the human female named Eleanor F. approached the platform, my tail began a frantic, involuntary twitching against the metal deck. She was remarkably small, her frame lacking the crystalline density of a G or lacked, or the fluid grace of the Sylph cadets. In her right hand, she held a half-eaten apple. The skin a vibrant, clashing crimson against her pale skin. A sharp crunch echoed through the sterile bay. Ilana took a massive bite, her jaw working with that casual indifference that made my scales itch with a sudden, localized humidity. To Xyran. Such rhythmic mastication in the presence of a Class S diagnostic tool could only be a war chant, a deliberate attempt to intimidate the machine's spirit. Behind me, a G or lack cadet let out a heavy huff, flinching as the scanner's alarm transitioned from a hum to a jagged, metallic screech. Is this thing even calibrated? Elena asked, her voice dry and laced with a boredom that felt like a physical weight. The machine is perfect, I snapped, my fingers dancing over the recalibration sliders in a desperate, 3-point salute to the internal processors. Across the room, the G or lack reached up to check its tusks, a nervous cultural quirk that usually signaled a looming stampede. My sensors were screaming, reporting a localized thermal anomaly centered exactly in the human's midsection. It was impossible. Through the transparent HUD, I watched the scanner attempt to categorize her biological signature. It cycled through the known database at a rate of 10,000 species per microsecond. Blue lights flashed, then amber, before finally locking into that terrifying, persistent crimson. On the main readout, the words pulsed with an aggressive, jagged font DONOT say, LASSIFY. Elena leaned against the interior of the archway, checked her wrist-mounted chronometer, and let out a long theatrical sigh. She looked at the loose thread on her left sleeve, winding it slowly around her index finger while the scanner's cooling fans ramped up to a deafening roar. I felt a surge of professional horror as the data stream began to bypass the standard safety protocols. My hatchmate Crix had spent 40 solar cycles perfecting the sensitivity of these sensors, yet they were currently treating this small Terran as if she were a walking tectonic fault line. Look, I've got a history lecture at 900, Elena noted, tossing the apple slightly into the air and catching it. Can we skip to the part where I'm officially a student? I'm starting to get a little heartburn standing here. Heartburn, the word translated into my lexicon as a core fire event, a term usually reserved for the molten interiors of dying stars. I stared at the bio readout in disbelief, my secondary heart stuttering. The sensors were detecting a concentrated pool of liquid in her primary digestive sac, with a pH level ranging from 1.5 to 3.5. It was a chemical signature so volatile that, under normal circumstances, it would be used to strip the industrial oxidization off a starship's hull plating. Beneath the observation deck, something shifted in the scanner's internal dampeners. The machine wasn't failing to find her species, it was refusing to acknowledge that such a biological impossibility could exist without a containment suit. Elena took another crunching bite of her fruit, oblivious to the fact that her internal chemistry was currently being flagged as a Class A corrosive hazard. The diagnostic archway groaned, its crystalline focus lenses trembling under the strain of a biological reading that shouldn't have been possible. 5 consecutive tests had yielded the same result: total system paralysis. My secondary hearts thrummed with a frantic rhythm. Xyran technician's nightmare unfolding in real time as the administrative board entered the testing bay. Technician Thrax, High Proctor Vane Boone, his crystalline plates clicking with authority. Explain why the most advanced bioscanner in the quadrant is currently screaming like a wounded G or beast. Proctor, the Terran, I stammered, my tail performing a jittery figure eight against the deck. It's not a malfunction. It's a refusal. Across the bay, the G or Lac cadet let out another wet huff. Its massive shoulders bunching in a defensive stance I had only seen in combat vids. Alana, meanwhile, simply leaned her head back against the scanner's interior. Her eyes half closed. She looked remarkably like a creature awaiting a slow transport ship rather than a student currently breaking the Academy's pride. By the third minute of the lockdown, the internal temperature of the bay had risen by 4 degrees. My data pads were overflowing with impossible chemistry. The sensors had moved past the heart rate and bone density errors, diving deep into the Terran's internal fluidics. I watched the spectrum analyzer struggle to identify the liquid in her primary set. The machine was trying to classify it as industrial solvent, then battery electrolyte, then finally settled back on that pulsating, bloody red warning. Eleanor reached down to adjust the strap on her left boot, tugging the leather tight until the buckle clicked. Is this going to take much longer? She asked. The twist didn't come with a bang, but with a silent readout on my primary monitor. High Proctor Vane leaned over my shoulder, his crystalline face going pale as he read the projected dissolution rates. The human's internal pH level wasn't a sensor glitch, it was a biological reality. At a level of 1.5, her stomach acid possessed the chemical potential to melt through the very hull plating of this station, if it were ever breached. Elena took a loud, wet bite of the apple while the scanner screamed CRITI Seseta. The realization hit me with the force of a physical impact, my previous misinterpretation. The idea that her chewing was a war chant shattered. She wasn't trying to intimidate the machine. She was just refueling the most dangerous chemical reactor I had ever witnessed. She's a walking breach, Vane whispered, his plates grinding in terror. If she were to leak, Thrax, the containment protocols for this entire wing would be useless. I thought of my hatchmate Crix, who had designed the scanner to detect weapons. He had never imagined the weapon would be the student's own digestion. The stakes had shifted from a technical failure to an existential threat. If one human could dissolve our infrastructure from the inside out, the entire academy was a glasshouse. Did I pass? Elena asked, looking up as the scanner finally gave a pathetic, dying spark and went dark. Enrollment is suspended, Vane managed, stepping back as if Elena might explode. The scanner hummed one last time, a low, defeated vibration. Elena shrugged, seemingly unbothered by the fact that she had just decommissioned the quadrant's most expensive medical tool by existing. She walked toward the exit, her boots clicking a steady, rhythmic beat against the metal floor. She tossed the brown, withered dappled core into the center of the silent scanner core. It landed with a soft thud against the glass. The smoke from the burnt-out processors drifted upward in thin gray ribbons. Elena's silhouette vanished into the bright light of the corridor. The red warning on my console flickered once more before the screen turned black.